So, part three. These are the barriers to my friendships, external barriers. Some more thoughts. I'm going to start off with something I wrote actually during the pandemic. I think it's relevant. A COVID lament about cows, kangaroos, train wrecks, and minefields. And it's entitled When People Don't Talk to Me, I Write. It seems obvious to me that the only true meaning of life can be found in successfully touching someone else's life in some way. That is what true friendship is for me. If you accept this thesis, then most people's life seems to me to be just a train wreck, a litany of missed opportunities. Most people don't bother. They don't try anything. They lack the courage and they just eat grass like cows. I don't lack this courage. As a result, my life looks like a minefield of exploded bomb craters. There are craters everywhere, but at least I tried a few things apart from just eating grass. If there is one, when I am in heaven, I don't want there to be any people really. I would like there to be creatures with courage. I expect there will be kangaroos who do have courage. They have the courage to look me straight in the eye. They say to me, "What do you want?" A meaningful, platonic relationship. I've got grass to eat. I wasn't born white with a British passport like you, and I didn't go to a private school, says the kangaroo. They tell life like it really is, and I really admire them. They will always be able to outstare me. If you're wondering why I've taken to posting my thoughts on YouTube, it's quite simple. I've nothing better to do. I just teach and walk all day, every day. There's very little live entertainment now in the pandemic, and I'm fed up watching the nauseatingly repetitive news. I've become so good at playing the same 3 or 4 holes of golf that I've actually had to give up. It's just too boring. And the reason I gave up is so that I get worse again and then I'll have to challenge myself to become better again. Sad. Nobody wants to do anything with me. Not to walk, not to play golf, nor even to talk to me. I'm the one who wants to do the walking and the talking. They're all too busy eating grass and wasting their opportunities. My life is virtual now in the pandemic. I see the odd human being every few days, so on my walks, these banal phrases and sentences keep inserting themselves into my mind. There's nothing I can do about it. When people don't talk to me, I write. I'm a pleaser. I spent my life trying to please people. Now, the first thing which is a barrier, an external factor that I want to talk about is lack of curiosity. As far as beginning a friendship, though, let's start with lack of curiosity as a barrier. I don't mean the type of curiosity gossip, which is about, who said what to whom, when, and where. I mean curiosity about the world and what's in it, including, of course, the whole of humanity. So it's lack of curiosity about this is what I'm talking about as a barrier. Children, of course, are all naturally curious. They all have it. But something happens in the process of growing up which kills the curiosity about the world in many children. I think this lack of curiosity can come from the personality. There are definitely some people who do not have a strong emotional need or desire for connection, but most people I've known have a strong desire. The other type of curiosity or lack of curiosity is when it comes from the culture in which they live. And there are many things in culture which cause a lack of curiosity. For example, work. Adults find all sorts of ways to lose this curiosity. The obvious one is work, which kills often curiosity about everything in some people. It's very difficult for someone to be curious if one is struggling and very poor. One needs all one's time to work to survive, so poor people can be forgiven about not being curious about the world. They have to use up all their time to survive. In my experience, religion is a major barrier here, major offender. Many religions kill curiosity about everything for many people. As a result, for many people, the world is just too dangerous and threatening to be curious about it. So in my experience, people who are very poor or religious don't have time for friendship. They're unreliable friends, therefore. Religious people are often, good people, but they don't have the time needed to invest in friendships. They are too busy with religious commitments, and so their friendships are often shallow and of the transactional type. By this I mean that they make friends because they need somebody for something. Sometimes the need is just entertainment. I've had some religious friends, but eventually they usually try and convert me to their religion. The friendship then ends. Some such friendships have been long, but they have never been deep for me, and they eventually crumble because the religious person doesn't have the time to nourish the friendship and cannot use their critical faculties to discuss the irrational idea of faith. I have very few religious friends. They are mostly acquaintances. Some migrants in Australia are religious. Although I may help them by giving them free or cheap English lessons when they first arrive in Australia, once they get settled and no longer need me, they usually drop me. Religious people really only have one close friend. That is their God. And of course, by definition, he's invisible. In some friendships, I've been replaced as a friend by God. I find this quite insulting to be dumped as a friend for someone I can't even see. Of course, there are times in one's life when one is too busy to invest in friendships. I'm thinking of the time when one has a young family, but often it's not necessary to be busy. It's just a choice. It's often not true that people are too busy. It's a choice. If people keep saying they are too busy, then for me, no friendship will develop and any existing friendship will wither. This has happened on many occasions to me, and it is not that they are too busy. They just prefer to do other things than invest time in our friendship, so the friendship has died. Now, another barrier is, of course, partners. Well, as a teacher, a tutor, language mentor, I've had friendships with many of my students. I've found that partners can be a problem with my students. Many female students are very busy with work, study, family, and so are their partners. Sometimes I will strike up a good friendship with the student only to find that the partner becomes jealous. The student will then find some excuse to end the relationship. Such ruptures can be as unpleasant as they are unexpected. By the way, this applies to friendships with males and as well, not just females. Sometimes the female partner of a male friend is jealous of the friendship of her male partner with me. I find that marriage is often a huge barrier to friendship. Each partner stakes a claim on the time and loyalty of the other. Friendships outside the pair bond are seen as a threat. In my marriage, I am happy to report that this was not a problem. Being partnered or married often makes people lazy and complacent when it comes to friendship. They don't bother to make the effort to make friendships with others. They rely far too much on their partner. Worse is the fact that they will often use the partner as a shield to make a cocoon which is not approachable to outsiders. Such couples, and there are many of them, I find very boring. They have no curiosity about anything outside their cocoon. As far as marriage is concerned, my views have changed a lot in recent years. My current view of marriage is it is a useful and necessary relationship for many couples for 20 years or so until the children are mature. To avoid conflict, many couples, but not all, prefer their partner to be monogamous during this period, at least until the children are young adults. Some couples remain lifelong partners until they die. That is not common, but that is very good if it happens. In the modern urban lifestyle, I think that when the children are adult, they complicate friendship enormously between the parents. And I think the partners should be free to explore new friendships and relationships and to repartner with someone else if that is what they want. Laziness. Well, friendships require hard work from both friends. Many people think they can just turn off the tap of friendship for a few months or a few years even, and then turn it back on again a few months or a few years later. I don't think you can do that. While I was able to do this when I was younger, maybe, after about the age of 40, I found that both my friends and I had changed a lot, and I had to keep feeding my friendships by keeping in touch by email or Skype or Messenger or by text. If I didn't, the friendships withered away and died. Age can also, of course, be a barrier to friendship. Different generations generally do have different views of the world. Paradoxically, in spite of this, most of my friends have been either much older or much younger than me. A difference of 30 or 40 years is quite common. When I was younger, it was the same. I also had older friends. I don't understand really why this is. I don't know why I don't have friends of similar age to myself. Gender, well, of course, many cultures it's not acceptable for women to become friends with men outside the pair bond. In my experience, they do it anyway, but when the pressure inevitably comes on from the partner, the woman feels guilty and then often unceremoniously dumps the external friend in a quite ruthless way. Money is often a barrier too. People are very secretive about how much money they have, so people have to make assumptions about the financial worth of a potential friend like me. Sometimes people don't feel comfortable if they have more or less financial resources than I have. This hinders the development of the friendship. Power also usually influences friendships negatively, so much so that I don't have any friends where there is a power imbalance between us. People with power are generally not interested in friendship. They only make friends in order to use them. Having said that, when I am teaching, I often have or have had a position of power over my students. On the one hand, that may be negative, as I just explained, all power corrupts. However, it does give me an opportunity to meet and start friendships. Many of my current friends are indeed former students of mine. That said, in general, most of my students, like myself, are not economically or politically powerful. Lack of humor. Well, humor is absolutely essential for friendships. It's not a concept which is easy to understand, humor, but some modern thinkers will think that humor arises when we are presented with unexpected information or an unexpected situation, which is then resolved easily or unexpectedly. I happen to like the unexpected, well, sometimes, if it's positive. Humor for me is a wonderful glue which holds my friendships together. And without it, the friendship simply weakens and eventually withers and dies. Since the era of ancient Greece, it's been a long tradition among Westerners to enjoy humor. For example, humor is regarded as a desirable positive trait now of an individual. People are thought to be more attractive, more motivating, creative, and capable if they are humorous. It's important also as a part of psychological health. Without the humor, I find the friendship just dissolves. The whole point of humor is to make people more comfortable with each other, and I find that shared sexual humor is the most powerful tool of all for doing this. There are so many different types of humor. Yes, sarcasm can be funny and deepen a friendship too, so long as it's not used in a cruel way. For me, I find humor is a very powerful glue to cement friendships. However, I do agree that some people can take offense at it for a variety of reasons. So the problem is because people change, there must be a glue which holds the friendship together. That glue is humor for me. No humor, no friendship. It's as simple as that. There are many types of humor, but for me, the strongest glue is the sexual humor. It is also the most dangerous type of humor for the friendship if it is misunderstood. In Australia, it's very common for men and women of all ages to tease each other in a sexual way. It is a type of flirting, and almost everybody does it. Men and women of all ages flirt with others, even in front of their own partners. This is also true in England and many other European countries, but it's less widespread in Ireland, perhaps because the Irish were traditionally more religious. I'm not sure. In sharp contrast, Easterners' attitudes towards sexual humor is not usually as positive. Specifically in China, Confucianism has devalued sexual humor. In my experience, the Chinese do not think that humor is a desirable personality trait. I think sexual humor is the super glue of friendships. For me, it really boosts the friendship for both of us. But it's extremely hard to achieve. My own journey with regard to sexual humor is a long and painful one because I'm the product of a very conservative culture in Northern Ireland. I've therefore had subconsciously conservative and prudish attitudes to sex for much of my life. Intellectually, yes, I was open minded, but the reality is that subconsciously I felt very uncomfortable talking about sexual matters for much of my life. It's extremely difficult to change these subconscious beliefs obtained during childhood. Not impossible, but extremely difficult? Yes. I used to be uncomfortable with sexual humor, but in the past 10 years, I have definitely changed. And I see it now as a more natural thing for both men and women to make jokes about. Of course, the sexual humor should always be tasteful and not be designed to hurt anyone personally. I don't think my jokes hurt anyone seriously or take advantage of them. I find that if I share sexual humor with someone, then it often really deepens the friendship. However, I accept that I can't share that type of humor with all of my friends. Now, old friendships, let's talk about them. Well, I'm happy to say that I still have some very healthy old friendships which have lasted over 40 years. Well, the problem is that people change with time, and so have I. I have changed my interests, my opinions, my beliefs, and my values with time. And so have many other people. So I may not be the same person at 20 as I am at 40. So it follows that friendship at 20 may not be the same as the friendship at 40. Sometimes I speak of my old friendships with great pride. I certainly have done this in the past. And I speak with great pride to my new friends about my old friends. And until recently, I've really carefully nurtured these old friendships. I've regarded them as the pearls in my collection. They are the oldest friendships. And I thought, therefore, the deepest, most profound, and most worth preserving. Well, maybe, but no, I'm not so sure. In recent years, I have been disappointed in some of these old friendships. I found that the reality is that we have grown apart. The directions of our lives have been very different. I've found that some friends have become excessively inward looking, apathetic, complacent, and definitely boring. Other friends have become obsessed with making money or buying real estate or seeking power in some way. Yet others have become obsessed with a dreary, proselytizing religion. Still others have become obsessed with their own mental and physical health. Some are not interested in making new friendships or preserving the old ones. Old friendships need nurturing. Friendship is like a plant. It needs constant watering to sustain it. Without water, the friendship will wither. And people find all manner of excuses not to keep watering their friendships. Many excuses are legitimate, survival, of course, being the main one. People, especially young people, are busy with their jobs, families, and studies. This busyness is understandable up to a certain point, but in the end, it sometimes just comes down to apathy and complacency. People just can't be bothered watering the plants, even if you have the busiest of busy lives. Studying, working, tending to the needs of your family, you still have the time to acknowledge a text message with a thumbs up. No, it's not that people are busy. Sometimes it's just that they don't value the friendship as much as other things in their life. Sadly, I find this true even with some older friendships. Until quite recently, I had just not realized how fragile friendships are, even the long term friendships. Friendship is a very delicate flower which will wither unless it is supplied with nutrients by both partners. People are so very changeable, even long term friends, and they change not for the better sometimes. Old age is certainly not good for friendship. When I was 16, I went to visit the father of a cricketing friend in Ireland. This man was the headmaster of a school. I clearly remember him philosophizing to me as a young teenager. He said, "As you get older, you will see that people are so changeable." I couldn't understand what he was talking about at the time. But now I see it very clearly, and those words, for some reason, stuck in my mind and have been playing like a broken record throughout my life. He was a very kindly and wise old man. So, yes, I think I may have been overrating some of my older friendships. Now, to talk about taboos, well, of course, in any friendship, for me, the depth and richness and satisfaction does depend on the number of taboo topics that there are in the friendship. It's okay to have some taboo topics, but it means in general that the friendship will be more limited and less satisfying, I think, for both friends. For me, the important thing is for the friends to send clear signals to each other and to agree tacitly, if not openly, about what are the taboo areas. This may happen subconsciously in many friendships. Taboos may not be acknowledged consciously. I've had some very long-term friendships where there are many unacknowledged taboo areas which are not to be discussed for one reason or another. Of course, what are taboo areas at 20 may not be taboo at 40 years old because people change. That's why it's important to stay in touch. When you say, I don't like sexual jokes, well, that may be true today, but in 10 years' time it may not. You may well have changed your opinion on this. It certainly was true for me. It was also true for me that if there are many taboos, it may be difficult to sustain the friendship over time. Most friendships have taboo areas. Religion is usually one, sex is another, politics can be taboo for some people, money and family are often taboo. Sadly, even mention of a partner's past history or even personal friendships can be a taboo topic. In Australia, in local culture, by that I mean second, third, or fourth generation Australians, between strangers, it is almost taboo to even mention the past at all. I find it very difficult to make friends with locals in Australia for this reason. I think this is a cultural pattern, partly to do with xenophobia and partly to do with the shame associated with the political history of the settlement of Australia. People seem reluctant to inquire after anyone's personal history. So, how can the friendship really develop with a local beyond banter if you don't ask personal questions and share personal experiences? I don't see that it can develop. I'm not criticizing banter. Banter serves a purpose. In fact, it oils the wheels of initial contact between people, and Australians are experts at banter. In fact, I think they are the world champions that I've observed. But banter is just acquaintanceship, and there is more than just acquaintanceship. I find it very difficult to get beyond acquaintanceship to close friendship with local Australians. I've found that I have to guess the taboos where there are cultural differences. This is another issue with other nationalities. I have to guess the taboos. And I may get from time to time mixed messages from some people on what is taboo. Something may be taboo at one point in time, but it may not be taboo at another time in a friendship. So if a person changes, this inconsistency has sometimes led to the premature ending of a friendship. Inconsistency is a real killer of friendship for me. Yes, another thing, external factor, is gratitude. Surprising one, this perhaps, but I think gratitude can be a barrier to true friendship. Some friendships may have started as a favor, given or received, but the feeling of gratitude is only temporary, and it is certainly not a permanent basis for close friendship, in my opinion. The gratitude needs to be replaced by something much more solid, such as shared interests or mutual respect, if the friendship is to be sustained. In some cases, their gratitude may become a barrier to friendship. Sometimes I've given free or cheap classes to students. The student is often grateful at the beginning. A friendship may flourish initially based on the favor I've given, but later the friend may feel guilty for having accepted classes at a cheap price. Sometimes this interferes with the subsequent friendship. The friend, not enjoying the sense of obligation that the favor has engendered, will find fault with me and end the friendship. He or she does this in order to assuage his or her guilt at her sense of indebtedness to me. People don't like feeling under an obligation for the favor. He or she can't handle the sense of obligation and indebtedness that the favor has engendered. This has happened to me several times. Very sad. Addictions, of course, are another barrier. Alcohol and drugs are the obvious one. It's almost impossible for the addict to have close friendships. But addiction to work is another serious barrier. Friendships require time. People are too busy to make friendships, so work is necessary for survival sometimes. But sometimes the work is just a distraction, really. A few conclusions. Well, what to do? The only solution is to keep making new friends all the time. So that is what I try to do. But I do admit it is exhausting. A joint activity with often other people is a useful strategy. It can be anything, of course, a job, a course, a holiday, hosting a dinner or a party. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes you can plan, though, too much, and you can try too hard. Friends can sometimes be made where and when you least expect. But in general, I found that doing an activity which is designed to help other people is a good way to make friends. Recently in Thailand, I met an elderly Danish man, Chris, who I had met once before only on a day excursion. We struck up a conversation and we sat down to have a coffee. I had time to kill because my new Thai class didn't start for 3 hours. Well, we hit it off immediately and we were almost tripping over ourselves with excitement as we exchanged stories about our lives. He, like me, had been a teacher and he had lived an interesting life, having visited 75 countries. He spoke several languages which he had learned as an adult. He was happily married with grown-up children the same age as mine. We exchanged stories and anecdotes and became quite intimate very quickly. Much more pleasure and intimacy than the laborious, carefully nurtured of some failed older friendships have given me in recent years. We exchanged contact details on Facebook. Chris returned to Denmark after half a year in Thailand. He spoke reasonable Thai. He told me, people are always asking me, why am I learning Thai? To these people he responds, well, why do you play tennis or golf? Because it gives me pleasure. I had the same question today from someone. I gave him Chris's answer. So thank you, Chris. I look forward to meeting Chris again someday. Some final thoughts. Friendships don't last forever, but they can last for a very long time. Sometimes we are just too self-centered for friendships to last. Human beings tell themselves lies all the time, and I'm sure I'm no exception. And sometimes I refuse to let friendship go. I try to hold on to them for too long. I've become better at making new friends. I sometimes think that you learn nothing really important in life before you're about 30 years old. That was certainly true for me anyway. It was only in my 30s that I really started to live and learn the important things in life, such as how complicated people are and how not to judge them and myself too quickly or too harshly. And a final quote by Chekhov: "If you are afraid of loneliness, do not marry." But maybe Anton Chekhov, the alternative is worse.